Hey guys, we're back for part 2 of the Badposts Questions. I skipped a day of actually answering because I felt really bad and whatnot. I'm so bit under the weather today, but we're going to totally smash these out. Hopefully I can get some more questions before my day runs out. Anyways, let's get this started. My next question is, for 3 months, you can only speak in quotes from a single movie. What movie do you choose? Zoolander, hands down. Next. Next up, got kind of a long one here. Really short actual question and then kind of a long stipulation. So I have 2 options. For my first option, I can have an agent assassinate Adolf Hitler in 1920. And for your second option, you can get the cure for cancer. You're informed that a cure will not be available for approximately 150 years otherwise. Which do you choose? And don't be a smartass about how we already have some basic treatments for cancer. I'm going to sound terrible for this, and I hope you don't hate me forever because of it. I'm going to go with the cancer thing. Mainly because, well, the world has kind of accepted the whole Hitler thing. I don't know if accepted is the right word. The whole World War II Hitler thing happened, and we've already kind of dealt with it. I don't know what today would be like without it, in a couple of reasons. We're a lot more mindful about things. I assume that what's the word? We look out for, you know, that kind of stuff rising up more often. Wow, my lexicon is just failing me all over the place. One of the big things is, though, from that war, that big war, we got a lot of technological advances. War, they found out, is one of the biggest reasons our technology advances so quickly. If you go back and look at all the different things, a lot of our technology that we use today gets blasted really quickly when there's big wars. That's all there is to it. You know, our nuclear whatnots is because of that. Anyways, I gotta continue on to the next one before I sound too much of an idiot. Oh, let me justify my cancer thing. Cancer is a thing that's just, goddamn, even if it takes 150 years to get a cure for it, it's still a cure. It's still eradicating it. Cancer is just some wicked thing that affects all of humanity, and it's not something simple as stop this one guy, because there have been some people much worse than Hitler in history that, you know, the world could do without as well. Cancer is one of those things that's just going to affect us, and if we can get rid of it, that's awesome. Next question is, what was the best year of your life? I don't know if I have an actual year, like a specific year that was my best year. I do have most influential year, so I'll share that instead. It was the year of 4th grade. A lot of things happened in 4th grade. A lot of things that actually affected the way I act today. My teacher, actually, he was fired the next year because he tended to lose our papers, our homework, and whatnot. I actually learned about carbon paper because of him. He would have us do our homework with, he handed out a piece of carbon paper to everyone. For those who don't know, carbon paper is just a little black piece of paper. You put one paper on top, one paper on bottom, and you write on one and it copies over on the other one. And he had us do all of our homework with carbon paper, and if he says that we didn't turn something in, we were supposed to show our piece of carbon paper to our carbon copy, basically, to him. Man, he lost everything. Goddamn, that was basically the reason he got fired, was because he would lose everyone's papers. That was one of the big reasons I became really lazy in school, actually, believe it or not, because for years after, teachers would say, "Oh, you turned this in," and I would be like, "No, or you didn't turn this in." I'd be like, "No, I did. I totally did turn it in. What? You must be missing it or something." It would work with him with stuff, obviously. And after that, I went through most of high school with that mindset. I've gotten rid of that now. Well, kind of out of school now, and I went to a college that was project-based, and you can't really not turn in projects. Another thing on there was the whole Patrick thing. There was another Patrick in the class, and we had to distinguish each other, and it went on for weeks. And he really didn't care. It was basically me thinking these things up. I thought I would go by my middle name, which is Michael, so I'd go by Mike or whatnot. But it was like, no, I can't really respond to that. So I went by Patrick. He went by Pat. It turns out he was the cool guy, and I was the lonely outcast who had one friend. So after that, I decided to call myself Pat. And that continued on up until 6 months ago or so. I decided to go by Patrick because it sounds more adult, basically. Yeah, so there's that. Another big thing was Patrick actually knew basic programming. We had an Apple IIe, we had a Macintosh, and we had a Commodore 64 in our classroom, which is really cool. And he would go on during our free time and program things on the Apple IIe. Screensavers, little word-based adventure games and whatnot. And I would basically sit behind him and watch him. And once he was gone, I would go back and I would basically copy exactly what he did. And that was when I first started programming and when I really got into it. And I got really good at it because back then the Apple IIe, it didn't have a hard drive. So if you wanted to save anything, you had to have your own disk. Well, being that young, I didn't have my own disk. So every time I wanted to do something, I have to go back in and I would have to repeat every command and then continue from there, you know, making screensavers, or I made a lot of text-based adventures. I didn't really do any graphical text-based adventures because that requires that you to actually graph the friggin' picture by math. Or at least as far as I understood, it did. I know there's ways you can do it otherwise, but that's the way I understood how to do it. Later on, I got my hands on an TI-83 and the TI-83 Plus, the programming calculators, and I basically it has its own form of BASIC. It runs the same way as BASIC on the Apple, but instead of typing in the commands, you had to choose the commands from a list of stuff. And I would make games and games and games and games on there. And that's basically where I am now with my whole game production degree and trying to get into actual games. So there's my life story there. Woohoo! Another big thing in 4th grade, the teacher would put weird problems on the board. You know, word problems, brain bender type things. There was one where, let's see if I can draw this in the air and you can understand, where you have a box and then kind of a brick layout like that, and you had to go through each line only once using one line. And he was saying it's one of those problems that's basically impossible to solve, but he was saying there was a way to possibly solve it. And I figured it out, which was basically you go up to the last line, you follow it up, and then you cross it. So it was, you know, kind of a play on word type thing. Every time you would get a correct answer for doing these big problems, you would get a piece of candy, which was usually like a Jolly Rancher. And back then they had the Jolly Ranchers that had natural flavors, so I'd always rummage through for those. I also became amazingly creative in that year. He would have projects like make commercials for fake products and whatnot, and me and my one friend would go out into the playground and we'd practice it over and over again, and we came up with some of the weirdest crap. So yeah, that year right there basically formed my entire life and how I am today with my interests and whatnot. So hopefully that's a good enough bit for your question. Next up is a question that I see is really unfair. Is what is, to your mind, the best written game to have been released in the 1990s? Well, first up, I can't pin down a single game as my favorite game ever. That's tough on its own. There are too many genres of games that I like. Secondly, 1990s, in my opinion, was probably the golden age of games. That is when games had their heyday. Let's see here. I went to Wikipedia to get a mindset of what the 1990s held for us. It launched the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It it had the first E3. In 1990, Secret of Monkey Island, Super Mario World, 91, Sonic, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, which is actually my favorite Zelda game. Myst, Doom were in the same year of 93. We have Chrono Trigger. We have Metal Gear Solid was 1998, actually. Wow. Grand Theft Auto. Final Fantasy VII's on that list, but I haven't actually played through it, so I don't really have a proper opinion for it. Seventh Guest was there. That's not on the list here, but that's a personal favorite of mine. Let's see here. Franchises started out in the 90s. F-Zero was fun. Ace Combat, I really like Ace Combat a lot. Command & Conquer is always good. Baldur's Gate, good times there. I haven't played it. I know of it, and I know how amazing it is. I do have plans to play it. Kirby, always good. Mortal Kombat, soft spot in my heart. Movie and game. Mortal Kombat 3, though. After 3, even 3 Ultimate was kind of getting there for me. But 3 right there, that's just like, that was awesome right there. I'm actually kind of impressed with what they did with the newer ones. Postal. There's way too many good games to choose from. It would have been easier to pick the best NES game. Really. All the great RPGs had their heyday in the 90s. That's when they really started taking hold. It's when BioWare really started kicking off like amazing storylines. That's when RPGs finally came to consoles. Consoles actually became really good and whatnot. I still have my Super Nintendo. I still play stuff on it all the time. So that is a really unfair question. There's way too many good stuff there. So, shoot. I'm sorry I don't have a definite answer there. I could talk for hours and hours about games in the 90s, but not going to do it on here. Got a really good question here. Kind of a lame answer. You can gain automatic expertise in any ability which is defined as being one-handed, as in knife twirling, painting, punching, etc. What do you choose? Drawing. Being able to take what is ever in my mind or someone else's mind or whatever and put it perfectly on the paper. I'm a very visual person. You'll notice I talk a lot with my hands. I draw things in the air and whatnot. I try to paint pictures with words and whatnot. Literally. To be able to draw exactly what I want and just slam it out would be amazing for me. I would absolutely love that. I have way too many ideas in my head, and my art skills are stuck in 4th grade. Yes, I went to an art school. I know proper drawing techniques. I know that if I practice at them a lot, they'll get a lot better. I can draw human forms. I can draw all sorts of stuff. But it takes way too much time for me, really, to concentrate on really well. So that's it. Being able to draw exactly what's in my mind or what someone else describes to me, exactly what's in their mind. That would be just perfect for me. Got a really good question here. Kind of a lame answer. You can gain automatic expertise in any ability which is defined as being one-handed, as in knife twirling, painting, punching, etc. What do you choose? Drawing. Being able to take what is ever in my mind or someone else's mind or whatever and put it perfectly on the paper. I'm a very visual person. You'll notice I talk a lot with my hands. I draw things in the air and whatnot. I try to paint pictures with words and whatnot. Literally. To be able to draw exactly what I want and just slam it out would be amazing for me. I would absolutely love that. I have way too many ideas in my head, and my art skills are stuck in 4th grade. Yes, I went to an art school. I know proper drawing techniques. I know that if I practice at them a lot, they'll get a lot better. I can draw human forms. I can draw all sorts of stuff. But it takes way too much time for me really to concentrate on really well. So that's it. Being able to draw exactly what's in my mind or what someone else describes to me, exactly what's in their mind. That would be just perfect for me. Got a really good question here. Kind of a lame answer. You can gain automatic expertise in any ability which is defined as being one-handed, as in knife twirling, painting, punching, etc. What do you choose? Drawing. Being able to take what is ever in my mind or someone else's mind or whatever and put it perfectly on the paper. I'm a very visual person. You'll notice I talk a lot with my hands. I draw things in the air and whatnot. I try to paint pictures with words and whatnot. Literally. To be able to draw exactly what I want and just slam it out would be amazing for me. I would absolutely love that. I have way too many ideas in my head, and my art skills are stuck in 4th grade. Yes, I went to an art school. I know proper drawing techniques. I know that if I practice at them a lot, they'll get a lot better. I can draw human forms. I can draw all sorts of stuff. But it takes way too much time for me really to concentrate on really well. So that's it. Being able to draw exactly what's in my mind or what someone else describes to me, exactly what's in their mind. That would be just perfect for me.